Thanks for tuning into IFW Radio, the voice of freight and logistics. Well, we finally made it back from Intermodal Europe in Amsterdam. We spent, I think, about 2 or 3 days in Amsterdam, getting to meet and greet a lot of our readers and contributors. Of course, there wasn't enough time to meet everybody, but for people that we did see, it was amazing to finally get to see you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and hopefully see you again next year. Now, the journey home, of course, was an absolute nightmare. Gatwick was cancelled, so we had to be diverted to Stansted, which isn't so bad if you didn't live in West Sussex. After arriving at Stansted, I then had to get a train to West Sussex, which decided to cancel itself at 2:30 in the morning in East Croydon. Now, East Croydon isn't a bad place at all, and it's really nice to visit in the daytime when the shops are open, but at 2:30 in the morning when it's snowing and you've got 2 or 3 pieces of really heavy luggage, it really isn't that much fun. Ended up having to get a cab all the way from East Croydon to where I live in West Sussex, and it cost me an absolute fortune. It wouldn't have been so bad if the cab driver had a white beard and maybe a red outfit and gave me a lift home in a sleigh, but he didn't. But he was laughing ho 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 all the way to my house, and I'm not quite sure what he was happy about, but I suspect he's going to have a Merry Christmas. But enough of that, I'm fine, it's all forgotten about. Shakes himself down. At Intermodal, I did have a chance to meet a very good friend of mine, Sebastian Schultz, who's chief exec for a company called Jan de Rijk. Now, Jan de Rijk has got some pretty interesting ideas of how they're going to be reducing their CO2 emissions in 2011. I think we've got a little clip of that interview. Have we got a clip? We have. Great. Okay, thanks. We've got a little clip of that interview which we'll play for you, just to give an idea as to what Sebastian's plans are for 2011. And after the clip, we're going to be going over to Damien Brett, who's going to be bringing you a roundup of some of the big headline-making stories over the past week in the world of logistics. But before we join Damien Brett, let's listen to a clip of that interview with Sebastian Schultz from Jan de Rijk.
Well, I joined the company 6 months ago. My previous career is basically on the airlines. I've worked for Cargolux Airlines and Air Express, Aeromexico Mexicana before. It's a great challenge, still very challenging at times as well. To answer your question regarding the CO2 reduction, our aim is to get 20% reduction of CO2 in 2012 compared to 2007. This is a relative reduction, of course, so it's on a per kilometer base, a kilo per kilometer base, because absolute numbers will be, you would be not able to grow anymore. And imagine you take over a company, it's impossible. So it's a relative emission reduction, and we're trying to achieve this by doing much more by intermodal, by reducing our fuel consumption. We have a program in place with our drivers that we actively monitor our fuel consumption, and we try to reduce it in that way. And more efficient planning. So we have new planning systems that avoid kilometers. So if you have a certain trip and there's a traffic and you have to turn around, which has better, shorter routes, so less fuel reduction. And also our drivers will be taught and trained and monitored on a weekly basis onto how to reduce the fuel consumption, of course.
But why is it so important to reduce this CO2 emission for you as a company?
Well, first of all, we believe that we have to contribute to a better world. That's the first thing. Secondly, if you look at the trends in the industry, I'm convinced that it's just a matter of time, whether it's a couple of years or 10 years, the youth of today is being so taught by environment, it's so environmental conscious. Those people are going to be the consumers and the decision makers of tomorrow. And I'm sure that in a couple of years on products, you'll see not only, for example, the food products, you not only see helping out which food, your calories.
The calories.
Not only the calories.
That's the word, calories.
Calories, okay. But also your CO2 footprint.
Yeah.
So I think consumers will at the end decide which product is more environmental friendly or not, and will choose not only based on pricing, but also on quality, of course, but also the environmental issue will be more and more important. And I think in the future, a lot of companies will be able to differentiate themselves by having a lower emission product, with less CO2 footprint. And the only way of doing that is, we being a very big part, an integral part of the logistics chain, we think we have to be on the forefront of that. Right. So we want to reduce that. We want to help our customers achieve these goals. So at the end, the products can be more CO2 friendly.
And how are your competitors reacting to this very bold claim that you're going to reduce CO2 by 20%?
You see in the industry, other people also, but it's reacting. They're reacting to it. They're not acting. And what we want to be active. We don't want to be reactive. Because if you're reactive, by definition you're too late. Because the market already determined what you should have done, and that's why you're doing it. We want to go before the market is going this way. We want to be ready. We want to be ready, and we want to be the first ones to benefit from this competitive way. There's also a lot of talks in the industry, and with all due respect, I think there's a lot of window dressing. It's a lot of PR. I mean, we walk the talk. You have to act on what you say.
Excellent. Okay, Sebastian Short. Thank you very much. Sebastian Short, the CEO of a company that not only talks the talk but also walks the walk. He's going to be reducing his CO2 emissions by 20% by 2012. We wish him the best of luck. Sebastian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kizzy, and welcome to another news roundup from IFW. And I'm reporting from a very cold and snowy London here, and it's actually quite lucky I'm able to do this because, as Kizzy mentioned, we spent a lot of last week in Amsterdam, and because of the poor weather, our flight home was cancelled. But we managed to get onto another flight thanks to IFW's team back in London sorting it out for us. But at the conference, it was very interesting actually. There were quite a few speakers from shippers, and they outlined what they look for in their transport provider, and the three common themes that they all mentioned were: firstly, the transport provider must be reliable. If they say they're going to be at a warehouse at a certain time, they've got to be there. Secondly, they looked at the cost of the product. So for intermodal services, they can't cost more than road transport, otherwise they're not going to get the business. And thirdly, they looked at the emissions emitted during that transport. So that's somewhere that intermodal transport can actually win volumes off of road, providing it's reliable and doesn't cost more. At the conference, Procter & Gamble, a big shipper, also announced it was looking to cut its transport spend by up to 20% over the next 2 years. But don't worry, it said it's not going to do this by pushing providers on rates. It said it would do this by looking for efficiency in service, and welcomed innovation from any transport providers that could do that. And Maersk Line were also there, and they talked about how they were going to start up an Amazon-style internet portal to make searching for rates and getting rates a lot quicker and easier. Right, well that's enough of news from Intermodal. I'm going to go on to now the top 5 most read stories of the week, and the 4th most read story on IFW over the last 7 days with 629 page views is the UN agency that oversees aviation is ready to issue new guidelines for cargo security to counter Al-Qaeda's new mail bomb strategy, but is stopping short of calling for 100% screening of packages, as some US lawmakers have urged. Proposed changes by the International Civil Aviation Organization focus on supply chain security and checking outbound air freight before it even reaches the airports. The 4th most read story, which has 676 page views, is that despite the winter seasonal downturn, overcapacity in the container ship market is expected to get worse in 2011, according to analyst C-Axis in its quarterly market report. And obviously this could have big impacts on rate. C-Axis said that container ship deliveries over the past 5 months had reached unprecedented levels, and carriers will be squeezed by capacity that is growing faster than demand. 3rd most read story of the week with 958 views is that Norbert Donch-Songel has acquired 100% of the shares of Laxi Logistics, which is the holding company that owns UK transport and logistics operator TDG, in a deal worth £196 million, or that's about $306 million. The deal is subject to the agreement of the European competition authorities and is expected to close around 10 January. ND said the consolidation of the Manchester-based TDG business would create a new group with annual revenues of 3.6 billion euros, that's about $4.7 billion, with a stronger position in transport and logistics. The second most read story of the week, with 1,242 views, is that Maersk Line is close to placing an order for a series of record-breaking 18,000 TEU container ships. According to IFW's sister publication Lloyd's List, letters of intent could be signed before the end of the year. A considerable amount of design work still has to be completed, with several South Korean yards in the running for an order that could be worth close to $2 billion. The ships would be longer and wider than anything ever built before and would require a new generation of cranes with longer outreach to stretch across 22 rows of containers. But beating that, the most read story of the week, with 1,289 views, is that a Russia-built freighter crashed in Karachi in the early hours of yesterday morning, killing at least 12 people. The plane was understood to be carrying 31 tons of relief aid to Saddam. The plane came down minutes after takeoff from Karachi's international airport and crashed into a residential construction site, killing all 8 crew and at least 4 people on the ground. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and tune in again next week. Or if you want to see the latest news as the week progresses, you can go to www.ifw-net.com, or you can visit our LinkedIn group, or visit us on Twitter, and we've even started up a Facebook group now where all the latest news is posted, so check that out.